Hello and welcome to one of a few interviews with actually real life people who are neurodivergent. And this interview today is in celebration of World Autism Acceptance Day 2025. My name is Jenine Lillian. My pronouns are Janine, they, them. I'm a dual citizen of Canada and the United States. And I'm an actually autistic neurodiversity consultant and educator. So today I have a very special guest with me all the way from the United States, and I will let her introduce herself in just one sec. But first, I want to let you know that we're going to be focusing on the positive aspects of being neurodivergent, and we're going to introduce ourselves in a little bit of a different way because we're a little different in general. So, thinking about sort of a mantra or a word that really trues us up to ourselves in our life. And for me, the one that I've been using for a long time now that was not 100% true when I started saying it, but it is now, is I know myself, I trust myself, I love myself. And so if you want to try that on, I fully recommend it. And it's a very fake it till you make it kind of thing. So
Yep.
with no further ado, Lauren, please go ahead and introduce yourself. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. My name is Dr. Lauren McGrew. I'm a clinical therapist and equine therapist, and I have a PhD in industrial and organizational psychology, specializing in adult neurodiversity in the workplace. I
Awesome.
am an AuDHD person. I'm both autistic and I have ADHD. And I am the mother of an amazingly neurosparkly young one who is also AuDHD.
Oh, nice. Thank you so much, Lauren. And so, as we were talking earlier, I mentioned that I was 51. I don't know how you could get to this age and not know, but I was, in fact, 51 when I got a formal assessment and diagnosis of being autistic and also dyslexic. And boy, it just really put a whole different lens on my past and gave me a lot of information about how to move forward in a new way. So, I thought maybe I'd ask you a bit about how old you were when you found out this information and how old you are now, and kind of some major discoveries that it has prompted for you in your life trajectory.
Well, I was in my early 30s when I realized that I was neurodiverse, but it was only after my daughter received her diagnoses. She was about 5, and we had been struggling for some years with sensory stuff, overloads, meltdowns, the stuff we didn't understand yet. And by some magic of the universe, her preschool teacher ended up being the mother of a female autistic kiddo. So when she saw this unique constellation of awesomeness, yet the struggles we were having, she
Yeah.
gave me a heads up. But
Yeah.
at that point, everything I had ever been taught about autism, and mind you, I was already a therapist, didn't look like my daughter.
Yep.
So I dove into the deep end of research, making it my goal to understand this from every angle that I could. And while I was researching, realizing all of these inherent barriers, that there's these entire generations of people who went without knowing, without support, without acceptance.
Yeah.
Um, but eventually realizing I'm a part of that lost generation.
Yeah.
I've always been the quirky one, the emotional one, the
Mhm.
dramatic one. I have a fidget in my hand right now that I'm using.
There you go.
But it unlocked this passion in me. I was actually in my PhD program at the time and
Wow. Good timing.
decided. Yeah. So I threw out my first dissertation and I
Wow.
started a new one that focused on how do I help the world understand the reality of what this is and isn't so
Mhm.
that I can change the future for my kid.
Wow. And
And
yourself and me. Thank
and
you.
yes, yes. But it's been this amazing journey. I am now almost 40. I will be 40 at the end of the month.
Oh, well, happy birthday.
Thank you. Um, but figuring out who I am and how I operate, it's made me a better mother. It's
Hmm.
made me a better partner. It's made me a better professional, just a better person.
Mm.
But the ability to hold myself to the accurate expectation, the
Hmm.
expectation of just being neurodivergent instead of being neurotypical and always feeling like I'm coming up short. I
Hmm.
think that has been one of the most life-changing aspects for me is
Wow.
learning about this. And now instead of living reactively,
Mhm.
I get to live proactively.
That's
And that's
awesome. Oh, I mean, that's a huge game changer by itself,
yeah.
right?
Mhm.
Yeah, my brother is ADD and got diagnosis as a kid, and so his experience is very, very different. And that was, decades ago. So of course we have different information now and so many different lenses to look at this, and it's just such an exciting time to see how it's shifting. We still have a long way to go, but we've come a long way. And one of the things that he shared with me was when he discovered a new word that was created for us. The word is GROY, GROY, and it's a mashup word which is specific to when a person gets a formal diagnosis of being neurodivergent. It's grief and joy combined. And so,
Lord.
yeah, great. It's pretty great. Um,
Yep.
I mean, like it is and it isn't, right? Because there is a
Yeah.
lot of sadness that comes, and especially for me, I had this feeling of like I was so happy to get this information because it was such like just a game changer for me to go, oh, this is why this is hard for me. It's not because I am trying to be difficult or because, like all of my life, the messaging has been quite negative about that I'm too sensitive or notice too much or ask too many questions. It's not something you can change, right? It's not something you can just sit on. Masking and camouflaging is something that we all do, but there is this expectation to sort of like sit still and quiet. And
Yeah.
even recently, I've had people tell me that they've tried to take their daughter to get assessed and they've been turned away because they've been told that women can't be autistic. And this
Yep.
is from an autistically diagnosed mom. And I said, I'm so sorry that this happened. And here are some resources to reach out to
Yeah.
people who can do the assessment on Zoom because
Yep.
we really need to keep elevating the awareness and reducing the stigma. But one of the things for me that was so wonderful is realizing, like, wow, okay, so now that I have this information, it's kind of like to really leverage the special interest and the hyper focus side of the neurodivergent mind and get more and more and more actually true information because
Yeah.
everybody has a phone and a microphone and yeah, there's tons of information out there, but if you really dig into the sources of the information, it's still a lot of misinformation and disinformation. And
Yeah.
so that's part of the reason why, through my consultancy work, I'm doing these interviews with actually real life people who may or may not be influencers, and they're
Yeah.
certainly not politicians, but having that lived experience combined with the formal assessment and diagnosis so that we can say, yeah, this is what it looks like.
Yeah.
And for me, it's really interesting too, because like for example, I don't know what it would be like to be AuDHD. So since I am autistic and just autistic, right? I'm wondering if you can tell like maybe some of the differences that between you and I based on your diagnosis and my diagnosis.
Well, when we're adding in the potential of ADHD, one of the things that changes is the volume knob of emotions on our internal control panel gets turned up.
Okay.
And with the impulsivity and reactivity in the brain, we can have more knee-jerk, big emotional reactions
Okay.
or thoughts that happen very, very quickly. Um, I try very hard, especially when I do a talk,
Mhm.
to control the rate of my voice, to be aware of it. But if I were really going to talk about something and
Yeah.
I'm excited and I'm going to get into it, then I can talk like this and I'll go really, really, really fast and everything.
Yeah.
And my body moves and
Hmm.
needs to move a lot. And when I don't move it, it makes it harder for me to exist, to think, to process, to feel calm.
Hmm.
Um, when we're looking into the attention and executive functioning realm, we are looking at the speed that your brain processes and uses those executive functioning skills.
Hmm.
when there is some of the inattentive stuff, it can lead to greater difficulty in doing the executive functions and
Okay.
completing. When there's the hyperactivity, it may not be, it'll be a little different. It'll be too much jumping between different thoughts
Mm-hmm.
fast. It's not that it gets lost halfway in between. It's that it goes, oh, shiny object, and oh, I never did this, and oh, I have to do this, and you know what is this over here,
Yeah.
this and that, and it's harder to organize my thoughts
Mm,
because they do move very fast. I feel like I can think about 2 times faster than I can ever hope to speak, but
yeah.
sometimes it jumps. And
Yeah.
then I deal with it where I might be in the middle of talking about something and then go, I don't remember what we were talking about.
Mm-hmm.
I'll get back there, but it's just my brain has jumped to a completely different
Sure.
thought, completely different firing pattern, and I have to spend the energy to get it back.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, so sometimes it can take the energy level, but it's not just an outward need to move, it's this
Yeah.
internalized mental energy
Yeah,
that
no, I
can,
totally relate to that from the perspective of like, I'm processing, I'm like reviewing and making decisions and like in a meeting, for example, or in a class, I'm taking in this information live and at the same time I'm processing it and coming up with questions and putting it against maps and doing all this internal heavy lifting. And
yep,
it is so difficult too, because especially as an autist, a lot of people say, well, you're not as emotional as you ought to be, or, you're very logical. And it's like, no, I feel all those things. But to me, the priority is to be able to grab the rational and to be able to be understood. And if
yep,
I allow myself to get choked up, I literally choke up and I can't be heard and be articulate.
exactly.
And being articulate is part of my main functioning mask, right?
Yep.
This is not my natural demeanor and volume and way of speaking. But it is a way that I've found that I can connect with people and I can be, an educator and I can be an advocate and I can benefit from collaboration and connection and community in this space and in person this way. But I have to be able to step out of the persona. I can't maintain it, for
Yeah.
lifelong. So I tend to have my emotional reaction after the thing has happened, right? Which is part of the reason why it's great to have an autistic person on your safety committee, because, we will get that
Great
stuff
under pressure.
handled
Yes.
and then we'll have our feels.
Yep.
So
Yep.
it's like, someone call 911. I'm the person who's going to take that because I want to
Yep.
have that agency and I want to be able to do something, right?
Yep.
And so there are so many of these gifts and also at the same time, so much of this internal invisible work that goes on. And so I think that that's part of the thing that we would really like people to have is a bit more patience and understanding that there's a lot of stuff going on in everybody's mind and none of us know what it is.
Yep.
And we might not really like want to trade places with anyone either, because a lot of the stuff that we say to ourselves is not super kind. And it's a lot of the messaging that we've internalized from stigmatized being, right? So it's so challenging to really encourage folks who haven't thought about it yet to like, instead of just going right to being frustrated because that person's not doing or saying or acting the way that you think they ought to, having this, creativity and curiosity and connection
Yeah.
be the point, right? And I think what you described with your daughter is such a wonderful thing too, that you're able to, of course, support and take delight in her uh, experience and her expression. And I think that that's a really nurturing thing for you to have then got, come at it from this more positive angle, because of course you're not going to say that, your child is doing something wrong or that,
Well,
you're not going to not give her support.
I get to raise her to know that she is this inherently neurodivergent badass. It is nothing to be embarrassed about. It's got its strength, it's got its difficulties.
Yeah.
I think this different identity where, you don't have to make somebody fail to learn how
Mhm.
to do something, but that confidence, she's 13 now.
Oh,
My
wow.
younger sister got married a year and a half ago, and my daughter was going to meet some cousins for the first time that were close in age, and she was kind of
Wow.
nervous about it.
Okay.
She went up to them and said, "Hi, I'm Elliot. I have autism and ADHD, and it makes me a
Wow.
little bit weird, but a lot of bit cool."
That's
And, and one of her
fantastic.
cousins stands there and goes, "I'm ADHD, and that makes me a little bit awesome and a lot of bit cool and a little wacky." And
True.
they spent the entire night just living their truth, not
Mhm.
worrying, not judging, not missing out on
Yeah.
life because they were saddled down with something else.
Yeah, no, oh, that's so wonderful. And I think that you probably have many experiences like I do where we meet adult friends who greet us in that way. And it's kind of like, what else do you do? What is easy
Yep.
for you to do? What's hard for you to do? How can we skill share so
Yep.
that, like I can help you with this and you can help me with that. And then we feel like we're winning at life instead of that the adulting is getting us down. What
Yep.
an amazing story. Thank you for sharing that with us. So before we wrap up today, Lauren, I just wanted to have us think in terms of if you have any particular words of encouragement with somebody who might identify with your experiences or maybe those of your parenting experiences, and also maybe what next steps you would really like folks to take after hearing our interview today for World Autism Acceptance Day. Any thoughts on either or both of those?
I would say, what do I want somebody to gain from today? The importance of listening to other people's stories who have actually walked the walk.
Yeah.
We're all equals in society, but I can never know what it's like to be a neurotypical. And a
Hmm.
neurotypical can never know fully what it's like to be an autistic or an
Sure.
ADHD person.
Hmm.
So listen to stories of people who are actually there, who
Yeah.
have, lived it every day, and challenge yourself to broaden your awareness, to follow your curiosity and
Hmm.
see where it leads you. And if it leads you down a rabbit hole, then welcome to the Neurodiversity Club because you probably belong here.
Yeah, there's so many. Yeah, oh, thank you for that. Yeah, absolutely. And that's why I'm doing these series of interviews because, like I said at the beginning, having that formal assessment and diagnosis so that you know actually what you're dealing with, and then having that lived experience. And even between you and your daughter, maybe one day we'll do an interview with both of you where we can talk about, sort of same different within that same, same and different environment where, of course, some of the things that are hard or easy for you won't necessarily be hard or easy for her. And that's really tricky too, because we get this diagnosis and then to a certain extent, we sort of want to hang our hook on like, okay, it's this and this and this. And that's part of the reason why getting the diagnosis is so hard. So, yeah, one of my big next steps and words of encouragement for folks is just know that autism is not caused by vaccines. Autism is not limited to young male folks. Autism is not something you outgrow, and autism is not being overdiagnosed. We're learning more and more about the human brain, and we really need to shed a lot of these myths and disinformation because it's only harming us, and the people it's really harming are us, the people with the lived experience. So remember that
One
you might not
more,
know what it looks like. Hmm.
one more stereotype to bust that
Hmm.
goes in with the neurodiversity. ADHD is not lazy.
No.
Neurodiversity is not a choice.
Yeah.
This is not just something, it's a real thing and it's
Yeah.
hard and it's not just a cop out of something. And that was one that I heard a lot growing up.
Yeah, and for me, just the heartbreaking perfectionism that comes with the neurodivergent mind, along with the lifelong anxiety and depression, that these are the extra weights that we bear, and that there's a lot of stigma and shame and guilt around. So when people are saying you're lazy or how come you just didn't do that one thing, it's a very short-sighted and harmful. Yeah, thank you for that. That
It's
bias is really hard.
isolating.
Yeah, it is
Right.
very isolating. It's very separating as well in terms of if you really want to connect with someone, and you immediately alienate them, you've now shut the door, right? So yeah, words of encouragement. Let's break down those barriers and ask more questions rather than giving those judgments and those
Yes.
biases. Yeah, your bias is showing if you
Yes.
Well, thank you so much, Lauren, for talking with me today for World Autism Acceptance Day. And really, I wish that they would change the name, but I understand why that is the name of the movement. So, in order to be accepting, we have to be aware. And I
Yes.
think a big part of that awareness raising is that people like you and I are standing up and saying, this is the truth and
Mhm.
these are the facts. And you can reach out to either of us anytime. We'd love for you to make some comments and let us know what you think about this, and feel free to share it with others who might benefit as well. Thank you so much.